Hey there, fellow science fans, and welcome to Science Exposed, the show, curated by the one and only Dr. Cameron Jones, where we break down those head-scratching scientific discoveries.
Yeah.
And today, we're taking a deep dive into something truly wild,
Ooh, wild.
using AI to simulate human behavior.
Now, the sheer potential of that idea is captivating.
I know, right? I mean, think about it. What if you could have 1,000 digital versions of yourself, all acting like real people, based on in-depth interviews?
Well, that's exactly what this research paper we're diving into today explores. It's all about a new way to simulate human behavior. That goes beyond just simple demographics.
Okay, so before we get into the details, I have a question for you. Have you ever tried to predict how someone would react to something, like a new policy or a product, and been totally wrong?
All the time. Humans are complex. That's why traditional models for simulating human behavior have always struggled.
Right. You can't just throw some statistics into a computer and expect it to perfectly mimic the messy, unpredictable reality of human behavior.
This new research tackles that challenge head-on. They call their approach generative agents. And it's built on something really interesting. 2-hour-long qualitative interviews with real people.
Hold on. Not just surveys, but actual conversations.
Exactly. They wanted to capture the nuances of people's personalities, their experiences, their unique viewpoints. It's about moving beyond surface-level data and getting to the heart of what makes each person tick.
So they're basically creating AI that's informed by real human stories. That's a pretty cool concept.
It is. And to make sure these AI agents were representative of the U.S. population, the researchers recruited over 1,000 participants from diverse backgrounds.
They didn't just focus on a small homogeneous group then.
Not at all.
Right.
They wanted to ensure diversity in their sample. And get this, they even used an AI interviewer to conduct these interviews.
Oh.
That way, every interview followed the same structure, minimizing potential bias.
AI interviewing AI to create even more AI. It's mind-boggling.
But also incredibly clever. So once they had built these agents based on real human interviews, they put them to the test. One of the tools they used was the General Social Survey, or GSS.
Ah, the GSS. I remember learning about that in my sociology class.
It's a classic. They wanted to see if the AI agents could accurately predict how their real-world counterparts would answer questions about things like societal issues or personal beliefs.
So it's like asking, if I created a digital version of you, would it think like you?
Precisely. They also used the Big Five personality inventory, which measures personality traits like openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism.
Wait, hold on. Are you telling me they tried to get AI to understand the complexities of human personality?
Yeah. They wanted to see if these agents could capture the nuances of how people think and feel.
That's a tall order. And they didn't stop there, did they?
Nope. They also had the agents play behavioral economics games like the Prisoner's Dilemma. It's a classic game where two players have to decide whether to cooperate or betray each other.
So they basically had AI playing games to see how they'd make decisions in strategic situations.
Exactly. It's a fascinating way to explore things like trust, cooperation, and self-interest.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
Did these AI agents actually manage to pass all these tests?
The results were truly remarkable. They found that these interview-based agents were incredibly accurate at predicting human behavior. In many cases, they even outperformed models that relied solely on demographic data.
So it's like saying, knowing someone's story is more powerful than just knowing their age or gender.
That seems to be the takeaway. In fact, the agents were as good at predicting a person's responses as that person was at replicating their own answers 2 weeks later.
Wow, they're basically as consistent as real people.
And here's another fascinating detail. To test the robustness of their approach, they wanted to see if these AI agents could replicate the outcomes of real-world social science experiments. So they chose several classic studies, including one that investigated how perceptions of fairness impact emotional responses.
That sounds like some pretty deep stuff. What happened? Did the agents behave in ways that aligned with the original studies?
In many cases, they did. For example, in the fairness study, the AI agent showed similar patterns of emotional reactions to perceived unfairness as the real human participants in the original experiment.
Hold on, so you're saying they managed to replicate not just individual behavior,
Right.
but also complex social dynamics.
That's exactly what this research suggests. It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is. But I have to ask, if we can simulate human behavior this accurately, what does that mean for us? And what are the implications of this kind of technology?
That's the million-dollar question, and we'll delve into that more in just a moment. Don't go anywhere because things are about to get really interesting.
Yeah, it really is remarkable to consider all the possibilities. when you can simulate human behavior with this level of accuracy.
Okay, so before we got cut off, we were just starting to get into the implications of this technology.
Right. And there are many.
So from your perspective, what are some of the most promising applications of this research? Well, imagine being a policymaker and wanting to understand how a new law might affect different communities.
You could run simulations to see how people would respond to different policy changes.
Exactly. You could test out different scenarios, identify potential unintended consequences,
Yeah.
and ultimately make more informed decisions.
That could be revolutionary for fields like public health education, even economics.
Oh, absolutely. It could also transform the way products are designed.
How so?
Well, imagine being able to simulate how people would use a new app or device before you even build it.
So you could identify usability issues early on, tailor the design to different user needs, and create a more intuitive and user-friendly experience.
Precisely. It could also lead to major breakthroughs in our understanding of how societies function. We could simulate the spread of ideas, the emergence of social movements, even the evolution of cultural norms.
It's like having a virtual laboratory for studying human behavior on a massive scale.
Exactly. And it could all be done ethically and responsibly, without having to subject real people to potentially harmful experiments.
That's a crucial point. Speaking of ethics, are there any potential downsides to this technology that we should be aware of?
Well, it's important to remember that these simulations are just that. Simulations. They can provide valuable insights, but they're not a perfect reflection of reality.
So we shouldn't rely on them blindly.
Exactly. And as with any powerful technology, there's always the potential for misuse. We need to be vigilant about ensuring that these simulations are used for good and not for harm.
For instance, someone could try to use these simulations to manipulate people
Yeah.
or predict their behavior in ways that violate their privacy.
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
We need to establish clear ethical guidelines and safeguards to prevent that from happening.
It sounds like this technology presents both incredible opportunities and significant challenges.
It does, but I believe the potential benefits outweigh the risks as long as we proceed with caution and, a strong commitment to ethical principles.
I agree. It's a powerful tool that could be used to improve our lives in countless ways.
It's up to us to make sure that happens. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. What aspects of this research stand out to you?
Honestly, what fascinates me most is the idea that our stories, our lived experiences hold so much power. They're not just anecdotes. They're the key to understanding who we are and how we behave.
That's a beautiful insight. It highlights the importance of listening to people's stories, of valuing their unique perspectives.
It also makes me wonder about the future of AI. If AI can learn from our stories, can it also learn to tell its own stories? And what would those stories be like?
Those are fascinating questions, and they're questions that we'll continue to explore in future deep dives.
I can't wait, but before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's bring it back to today's topic. We've covered a lot of ground, from the technical details of these generative agents to the ethical considerations.
It's been a rich and thought-provoking conversation.
It has, and I hope our listeners are feeling just as energized and intrigued as I am.
If you're ready to dive deeper into this research, you'll find links to the original paper and other resources in the show notes.
And if you're enjoying Science Exposed, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. We'll have more mind-blowing scientific discoveries to unpack together.
Until then, keep those curious minds engaged and never stop exploring the wonders of science.
It's fascinating how we often think about AI in terms of practical applications like automating tasks or analyzing data. But this research suggests that AI can also be a tool for understanding ourselves, for exploring the human condition.
Right. It's a powerful reminder that technology isn't just about efficiency or productivity. It can also be a catalyst for self-discovery and deeper understanding.
Absolutely, and I think that's what makes this research so exciting. It's not just about building better AI. It's about using AI to unlock new insights into what makes us human.
I completely agree. It's about bridging the gap between the digital and the human, between data and meaning.
Now, I know we've touched on some potential applications of this technology already, but I can't help but think about the possibilities in education.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine history classes where students could interact with virtual versions of historical figures, or science classes where they could run simulations to test their hypotheses.
It could revolutionize the way we learn, making education more engaging, personalized, and accessible.
Think about it. A student struggling to grasp a complex scientific concept could run a simulation and actually see the principles in action. Or a student curious about a particular historical event could have a virtual conversation with someone who lived through it.
It's like having a personal tutor and a time machine all rolled into one.
And it could help students develop critical thinking skills by encouraging them to question assumptions, explore different perspectives, and analyze data.
I love that. It's not just about memorizing facts. It's about
Yeah.
learning how to think critically and solve problems.
Exactly. It's about empowering students to become active learners and engaged citizens.
Speaking of engaged citizens, I wonder if this technology could also have implications for civic engagement and political discourse.
That's an interesting thought. Imagine if we could use these simulations to facilitate more constructive and informed dialogues about important social issues.
We could test out different policy proposals, understand the potential impacts on various communities, and identify common ground.
It could help us move beyond the echo chambers and polarization that often characterize online discussions these days.
It wouldn't solve all our problems, of course, but it could be a valuable tool for fostering empathy, understanding, and collaboration.
I agree. Ultimately, I believe this technology has the potential to make us more informed, more connected, and more thoughtful as individuals and as a society.
That's a beautiful vision, and it reminds us that while technology can be disruptive, it can also be a force for good.
It all depends on how we choose to use it, and that's a responsibility we all share.
Well said. As we wrap up this deep dive into simulating human behavior with AI, I'm filled with a sense of both awe and optimism.
Me too. It's inspiring to see how scientific advancements can push the boundaries of what we thought was possible and open up new avenues for understanding ourselves and the world around us.
And a huge thank you to Dr. Cameron Jones for curating this fascinating topic for us.
Absolutely. Dr. Jones always has a knack for finding the most intriguing and thought-provoking scientific discoveries.
If you're enjoying Science Exposed, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. We have more mind-blowing scientific discoveries to unpack together.
And be sure to check out the show notes for more ways to connect with us and dive deeper into the research we discussed today.
Until next time, keep those curious minds engaged and never stop exploring the wonders of science.